All right, welcome back to KM6LYW Radio, show about amateur radio or ham radio, reimagining radio in the information age. Hey, we talk all about data modes, specifically packet radio. How do you even know if you have packet radio in your area? There's all kinds of different types of packet radio. Let's see what you've got in your area this time on KM6LYW Radio. All right, welcome back. Yeah, free bumper music. That one's a little more obscure. We do too much 80s, right? Is that what it is? So, what is packet radio exactly? Well, packet radio is kind of like the data side of your radio. Now, sure, you can talk on a radio just like you can talk on your phone, but you can also text people using packet radio. This could be a little handheld HT. It could be a big system like this. And there's different frequencies that have different types of packet radio on them. Now, they all share this 1200 baud modem sound, but there's different applications on different frequencies. So on one frequency, it might be APRS packet radio. That's the one most people are familiar with. In fact, it's built into this HT. This is where I can send my position and it shows up on a map on the web, or I can send text messages to other radios or have them relayed to SMS messages on phones. APRS is probably one of the most well-known packet radio formats out there. But there's other packet radio networks on different frequencies. A Winlink, for example, is amateur radio email over packet. So you can send and receive emails to and from the internet using Winlink. And there's a bunch of radios out there, just like there's APRS radios out there that are doing email services only. And they're on separate frequencies, but they still use packet radio, the same modulation technique. And then third and finally, and this one's a little more obscure, I don't know if it's obscure, just a little less popular, and that's AX.25 networking. This is where we can use packet radio to actually network radios together and transfer information through like multi-state or through multiple radios. This is where you hear things about like Node and NetROM, AX.25, and those have dedicated frequencies as well, depending on where you live. So yeah, you could spin up an AX.25 network node and be part of a radio network, a computerized radio network. So those are the big three: APRS, Winlink, and AX.25. Now there's some other cool obscure ones that we're not going to talk about, like M17 and things like that. But get into those big three and you'll be hooked on all kinds of packet radio. So packet radio, if you're using VHF and amateur and ham radio, and you do need an amateur radio license to do this kind of stuff, because these things can transmit all the way to the horizon. I mean, we're talking, you can actually use 1500 watts if you felt like it. So there's a practical range here of about 80 miles. So this is fantastic for off-grid data modes for texting and SMS. So what do you listen for? How do you know if you have packet in your area? That's really what we're trying to find out here in this video. Is it even worthwhile for you to get into? So, I mean, if you have a packet radio and no one hears it, it's kind of pointless, right? So maybe that's time for you to build some infrastructure in your area. So let's check out your area just to see what kind of packet services are available. You can just spin the dial through a bunch of frequencies and listen for these modem tones, but I think we can do a little better than that. There's some resources you can use to see if there's any packet radio happening in your area. And starting with APRS packet radio, the site I like to go to, the resource I use is aprs.fi. So go out to aprs.fi and scroll around. It shows a worldwide map. Again, APRS packet radios for messaging and position reporting. It stands for Advanced Packet Reporting Service. I should get that right. It's not position, it's Packet Reporting Service. It's worldwide. It's on frequency 144.39 in Americas and 144.8 megahertz in Europe and other regions. So APRS.fi is going to show you all of the APRS radios in your area. And of course, I'm near Sacramento, and all of these radios have different purposes, which is pretty cool. What you're really looking for to see if you have genuine packet radio network in your area is these green stars. You see this G-Town thing, stands for Georgetown. That's a packet radio digipeater, and it also happens to be on the internet. So it bridges the APRS physical packet network to the internet, so you can get internet types of services here using APRS. So APRS.fi. If you don't see any green stars within 80 miles of your location, Yeah, APRS probably isn't going to work in your area. So what you want to do is create one of these green stars and build a DigiPi, which creates packet radio digipeaters. In fact, you can see here, we got a whole bunch of them up here in the mountains, which is where you'd want a digipeater. And it's kind of cool when you hover your mouse over these, you can see the packet radio network in real time. You can see how these systems are connecting. Like we've got Hope Mountain here connecting to G-Town. And of course, I live right about here. And here I have on a bulletin board, KM6LYW. So check out APRS.fi for APRS packet radio in your area. All right. Secondly, the resource for Winlink is winlink.org. And at the top of that page, there's a thing called tools. Click on that and then RMS map. Okay. And then there's a little checkbox here that says packet. This is going to show you where there are Winlink servers in your area on VHF packet radio. And of course, you can click on one here. We've got AG60H-10, and we see the frequency also. It's 145.69 megahertz. That's the frequency to use for a Winlink server if you're in the Grass Valley area. If you're down here by where I am near Georgetown, hey, look, there's a Winlink station called KM6LYW-10. He's on frequency 145.050, and we can see that here on this map. So if you're using Winlink like Wode or PAT or even DigiPi, go ahead and enter the call sign and the frequency, and you can connect and send and receive email over Winlink using VHF radios. Use like a radio like this with the Raspberry Pi. Put these together. Suddenly you can do email over amateur radio, and the range is like 80 miles. So in a disaster situation, that's pretty cool to be able to send and receive email. So winlink.org and tools and the packet map. We can see down here in San Francisco all kinds of Winlink stations on different frequencies. This guy's on 145.63. That's a popular frequency for Winlink email. We got another guy on 145.63. We've got a bunch on 630 here. That's cool. They all share the same. So everyone can share the same frequency on packet radio. We call it a single collision domain. That's okay. You don't really have to wait for a frequency to be available. I mean, it's nice to do, if someone's really hammering the frequency, but you can do that. It's shared frequency because these packet transmissions are just fractions of a second. There are some packet radio frequencies that are kind of lend themselves towards more emergency stuff. So don't use an emergency frequency if it's in use during an emergency. Okay, and a good example of one of those here is 144.910. We've got a packet Winlink station. This generally not reserved for emergencies, but during an emergency, it's reserved for emergencies. So that's something to be aware of, and we can talk about the band plans for that as well. So that is Winlink. Also, going back to the APRS map, you notice there's some red items here, the red triangles that have a W on them. Those are also Winlink servers. So you can figure out if there's Winlink email servers near you by looking for these big red W's. Here's NB6S-8. Hey, thanks for hosting this. He's on 145.730. That's a Winlink server that's near me. Hey, here's another one by KM6LYW-10. Shameless plug, right, on 145.050. So APRS.fi will actually give you both APRS stations and frequencies and Winlink email stations and frequencies. So the last thing is packet or AX.25 stuff. There isn't a real global standard for packet radio other than maybe the looking at your band plan for your region. Like here for Northern California, we have a band plan. This is the 2-meter band plan, and any section in green here is for packet or what they call digital stuff. So if you're not sure if you have any packet radio stuff, go ahead and tune your radio, like scan these little green sections and listen for those modem sounds. Okay, we're gonna do a demonstration here in a second, but it sounds like a modem. They're really short blasts of static, basically. That's your digital packet radio stuff. So look up your 2-meter band plan for your packet radio. And right now we're looking for AX.25 network node packet. So we've talked about APRS, we've talked about Winlink, and now we're doing AX.25 node types of packet. Additionally, in your region, there might be a sub-band plan. Here's one for Northern California. And we see all the different packet services and their frequencies here, which is pretty cool. Now, we just talked about APRS. that's on 144.390. And sure enough, here is APRS in the United States and Canada, right? We see Winlink down here on 145.630, right? We just spotted those guys. So people are actually following this coordinated band plan at a frequency level, which is pretty cool here in Northern California. Now, since we're talking about AX.25 networking, there is some reservations for that here. We see it at 144.35, and that's what they call keyboard to keyboard or mailbox. That's really AX.25 networking stuff. It should say AX.25 and NetROM, right? I don't know why they call it keyboard to keyboard or mailbox. But anyways, that's what this is. This is a frequency we're looking for our AX.25 network. And we've got some other ones here too. We've got 145.030 and we've got 145.050. That is a huge network in California, Oregon, Los Angeles area. In fact, I've got a node here called Cool that I have up on the mountain. If you want to make a node, I've got a whole video on that. We've got the Cool node up on the mountain. In fact, this 145.050 frequency has a map associated with it. I'd like to give a shout out to Varmint Al, actually Silent Key this month. Wonderful, wonderful guy. He put together so many resources and really set up the packet network for here in California. Looking at this site, now you're not guaranteed to have a map for your region, okay? This just happened to be because Al was awesome and he put together this map. So these are all the different AX.25 network nodes where we can actually do keyboard to keyboard chat. There's mailbox services where we can drop messages. Maybe you can play a video game over Zork. There's bulletin boards on here. It's kind of like a 1980s PC kind of thing. But it's all over amateur radio. It's all over VHF with the range all the way to the horizon, right? So we see right here is Cool node. That's our node here at the top of the hill. Now Cool can reach out to all these other nodes. We've got Volcano, we've got Hogan, Knight, Bull, I'm not sure. We got South Lake Tahoe here. Now what's cool is I can actually talk to somebody on, I don't know what's a node here, in Reno by actually routing through all of these other nodes. I can specify which nodes I can route through and actually talk to someone over the Sierra Nevada mountains so long as these radios are connected. And there's a protocol on top of AX.25, which is the transport layer called the NetROM, and these nodes figure out where they are and they'll establish their own dynamic routing table. So that's what's kind of cool about AX.25. It's not for everybody. It's pretty nerdy. It's pretty complex. But, once you figure it out, it's pretty cool to have an ad hoc network, kind of like Meshtastic almost, only with massive amounts of power and range. And here we've got a node system all the way in California. In fact, we've got it all the way up into Oregon and Medford, Klamath Falls, and it extends. These are all on the same frequency, right? If they're all part of the same network, we've got it all the way down to Los Angeles. So I can actually reach a node in Los Angeles by specifying a route all the way from Sacramento to Merced to Fresno to Bakersfield, get over these mountains through Victorville and get into San Bernardino. So that is AX.25 networking. So those are the big three types of packets. So let's browse around a little bit and see what we can see in here, just locally here at the house. So you can get into packet radio for as little as like $25-30 with one of these little RTL SDR dongles. You can get these on Amazon. Now this is just a receiver and it works with software like this. This is SDR++, which will show you a portion of the radio spectrum. Right now we're looking at the VHF or 2-meter ham band. The lower half of this band, remember when I showed you the band plan, it showed you where those little green spots are, is basically kind of dedicated to digital voice and packet radio. The APRS frequency is over here at 144.39. I'll unmute this. I don't know how loud this is going to be, but if you're looking for packet radio stuff, you need to know what it sounds like. So it sounds exactly like this. Did you get that? And you notice I've got an APRS receiver over here, and it popped up my call sign and my position and my icon, and that came through RF through my radio, and it came through, and we saw it on the SDR. We saw it I'm using Direwolf right here to decode these packets. We can see this is Craig on 145.805. Maybe you want to put in your position report what repeater you're on so people can see you pop up on their radio and then talk to you on your repeater. So I'm using Direwolf to decode the APRS packet audio that's coming through SDR++, which is going through one of these little packet radio devices. In fact, I'm using an SDR Play that's down out of sight here. So the lower half of the 2-meter band, you just heard an APRS packet. So that's what they sound like. Once again. And there I am on the screen. I've got a little ICOM 705 and a DigiPi that's decoding APRS right now as well. That's why you see it on the screen over here. So APRS, probably one of the more popular packet radio things. It's always going to be on 144.39. Now the other stuff, like the Winlink servers, you can look around. Remember we went to winlink.org to find those. We've got these stations over here. I know we've got one at 145.630, right? That's the popular one. If somebody sends a packet there, we will hear it, but these are less frequent. APRS stuff, you are going to hear several packets per second. In fact, we can see them over here on the left as they slide by. Now, if someone logs into a Winlink server, we're going to hear the same exact noises on these Winlink frequencies. So listen to these frequencies. Even if you don't have an RTL SDR, maybe you have a scanner, maybe you have a ham radio, you don't need a license to listen, and you can hear these packets. If you hear these packets, you know you've got that packet radio service in your area. Now remember I showed you AX.25 stuff. We've got that on 145.050 here. I wish there was a better map that's globally that shows you where the AX.25 NetROM node packet stuff is. But we've got that here at 145.050. And I can probably demonstrate that by using the cool node that's up on the hill here. Let me move this over. So we're at 145.050 packet there, and we're on the cool node, and I can go ahead and start up AX.25. I can run LinPack, which is a node terminal, a packet radio terminal. And I can hit F10, and I can just type stuff here, and everyone on this frequency will see what I type, or I can connect to other nodes or bulletin boards, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to say, hey, this is a radio test. When I hit enter, we're going to see it transmit, and we're going to receive it here. Wow, that's so loud. And that's because we're so close to the receiver. Let me turn down the volume a little bit. It doesn't sound like static. That was just total overload. Let me turn that down and say, okay, let's do let me zoom. I'm not going to zoom. It's just so loud. It's like 30 watts on the hill. This is a radio test. There it is. So we could actually hear the repeat as well. I can probably turn it up a little bit. Oh man, that was loud. Yeah, volumes are critical with this kind of stuff. Radios don't like distortion and that kind of thing. So I say, hey, this is another test. So you heard two packets there, right? You saw the big one. That was me transmitting my packet, and then it got repeated because I have other digipeaters in my path. In fact, we've got one called K John down here. And so the second packet you heard was another repeater bouncing my packet back to me and to stations all over Northern California. So we've got packet radio going on there. In fact, if I wanted to do like a connect to K John, for example, that's that repeater. We're connecting to K John. I don't think he heard that packet because we didn't hear the echo, right? That echo is the digipeaters. So let's see. Come on, K John. There he is. He's a little staticky, but you can see he says connected to wild node K John. And, I can do like a node long listing to see what nodes have been heard here recently. And he'll go ahead and respond with those. What's cool about AX.25 packet radio is it's a connected protocol. So, if he didn't get it, it sounds like he's a little weak. It'll resend those packets, right? And there's a verify and a retry. I know these are some long packets. He's sending a packet listing or a node listing to me right now. Also in Direwolf down here, we can actually see the audio levels, which is cool. So he's coming in a little low here. I know that's loud. Should I wait for this to finish? So we can see up at the top here, these are all the different nodes on the packet network that K John node has heard. Now he's on the other side of the valley. He's probably 60 miles away. And that's why he's a little dim today. And I think there's a little bit of interference in the air today as well, especially since I got all this stuff on here. So hey, we did it. We've got APRS, Winlink, and AX.25. You know how to see if there is packet services in your area. And we actually did a quick little demo for AX.25 packet radio here today. Yeah, so your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to get into these packet radio modes and other data modes on amateur radio, right? We're trying to keep amateur radio relevant in the information age. Hey, a great way to do that here is to get the DigiPi SD card image from digipi.org. It's an SD card software that you put in a Raspberry Pi like this. This is like $18, you guys. You hook the Raspberry Pi up to your radio, and it kind of turns your radio into a website that looks exactly like this. So this is the DigiPi web interface that lets you communicate with other hams or any radio device using all the packet mate radio modes that we just talked about, plus WSJTX, slow scan television, FLDigi, JS8 call. There's just too many to go through here. It's got an email interface, so if you want to do email, you can send and receive email here. You got your inbox, your outbox, all that stuff. DigiPi software does that, plus an $18 Raspberry Pi, and you can actually hook it up to an HT and make it mobile. Works with APRS, Droid, or Wode, or APRS.fi app. So DigiPi turns your radio into a data website powerhouse. And you can get that at digipi.org. Now, this does go to patrons of the channel. This is a way for me to give something tangible back to all of these awesome people that you're seeing scroll on the left side here. These are patrons. So patreon.com/KM6LYW. Anything in the Patreon bucket gives you access to this DigiPi SD card image, and you can do all of these modes that we just talked about here today. You can download it and use like Balena Etcher, burn it to SD, put it in your Raspberry Pi, hook it up to your radio, and you're good to go. Just some examples here, like it has like messaging for APRS web chat, right? So because no one likes to do messaging on a 10 key like this. So it's all available on your phone or your web browser, any Wi-Fi tablet. Works great on the Summit. We've got node services. There's a bulletin board in there for AX.25, right? So if you want to build a node for your AX.25 network, there's a bulletin board in there. I even threw in a video game if you want to play Zork. There's lots of different radio interface adapters for your dual band rigs. There's lots of cool little screens for this guy. You do APRS tracking, email. A WSJTX actually runs on this Pi and displays in your web browser. So you can actually do WSJTX over Wi-Fi from your easy chair and still be accessing your rig here in the shack. FLDigi, this will do CWD codes, JS8 call. So this is digipi.org, you guys. If you want to get into packet radio in a big way, digipi.org will let you download that SD card and get you involved in data modes, making amateur radio relevant in the information age. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. Let me know how you're using packet radio. And if you're in Northern California, go ahead and give me a shout on packet radio. The cool node is up here near Sacramento if you want to hang out. I've got a chat room open there on the bulletin board if you want to chat keyboard to keyboard. Guys, my name is Craig, amateur radio call sign KM6LYW, and I'm clear.